Visual novels frickin' suck. The vast majority of them are just hentai or terrible dating sims, and the few that aren't are written garbage. But what if I told you that there was a visual novel that was actually good? A game that tells an interesting story, with great visuals and aesthetics, and with one of the best soundtracks from video games altogether. Forget about Cyberpunk 2077, I'm talking about the real best game in this genre. Valhalla, Cyberpunk Bartender Action. I'm not quite sure how Sukaban Games did it, but they managed to make a visual novel tell a compelling story with characters we actually care about, all without devolving into some degenerative dating sim or just being straight up pornography. And not only does it have an interesting narrative to follow, but it is a game with beautiful aesthetics. I won't lie that I'm a sucker for the cyberpunk genre, but the visuals and character design are brilliant, and it is backed up with hands down one of my favorite video game soundtracks as well. And I will point out that there will be very minor spoilers throughout this video, but I will not be directly discussing any of the main plot points so as not to ruin it. If you want to know how the story plays out, I would highly recommend that you play the game. The game tells a story set in Glitch City, a dystopic hellhole ruled by corporations and corruption, and tells this story through the eyes of Jill, a 20-something doomer who works as a bartender at VA-11 Hall A, more affectionately known as Valhalla, and the story unfolds through how she interacts with her co-workers and her clients. And as a forewarning to all you gamers out there, the game tackles topics that you might find disturbing or alien, such as going to bars or people having sex. But the story of Valhalla isn't about the hellish world of Glitch City, but rather about the people who live in it. Meet all of its interesting characters, like the funny dog, racist black guy, big titty hacker, and my personal favorite, George Costanza from Seinfeld.
You telling me that wine is better than Pepsi? No way, wine is better than Pepsi!
The game's honestly a little too referential for its own good at times, but at least it only references media that's actually good, like RoboCop and The Simpsons before that fell off a cliff. You learn about Glitch City through your interactions with clients and even through reading clickbait articles of what is essentially the equivalent of Reddit and 4chan in one, but what's still more important is the personal stuff. And it's all kinda surreal. You have characters having mundane chats and people using social media just like they do now in the midst of this dystopian future rampant with murder, corruption, and terrorism. And if anything, revisiting this game after the COVID outbreak has only made this more poignant. People still use social media like they did pre-COVID, and while many of us cannot go outside and do the things that we would normally do, we're all just trying to get on with it as best as we can. And Valhalla's story is the same. It's people doing what they can to get by in the asshole of a world that they live in. But even with all the craziness going on, some things just stay the same. While much of the game plays out through dialogue, the game also features its drink mixing minigame where you'll have to manually make drinks for clients depending on what they ask for. You're given total freedom as to what you serve, and clients will often ask for something vague or for any drink of a particular type. And where other story-driven games would direct the story or give different outcomes based on a dialogue option, Valhalla does this through the drinks that you serve to customers, a rather unique and clever way of going about it. The game has a good and a bad ending, and getting the good ending also allows you to unlock extra scenes after the ending credits by meeting certain hidden criteria as well, only further encouraging you to jump back in and give it another go. There's also the finance management side of the game, as Jill needs to pay her bills. You earn money each shift and will gain bonuses for flawless service, and of course an extra bonus every week because you have the coolest boss in the world. Jill can also buy things to furnish her apartment with, and will need to buy certain things to prevent her from being distracted at work, none of which is absolutely necessary, but it adds that extra little challenge and customization to the game as well. But one of my favorite parts of Valhalla is its aesthetics, which for a visual novel is incredibly important as it is driven almost entirely by both its story and its aesthetical aspects. And damn does it hit its visuals out of the park. Not only does it nail the cyberpunk genre, but it masterfully recreates the 80s and 90s aesthetic by replicating the look of PC 98 games, albeit with a slight modern touch. And though the game gives you the option, you should definitely have scanlines on. But if the game hit its visuals out of the park, then it hit its soundtrack into orbit, because holy shit is this a good soundtrack. Again, I personally like the cyberpunk genre and style, but this is hands down one of the best soundtracks in any video game, period. And one of the cleverest things about the soundtrack is how it can be set by the player through the game's jukebox system. Jill will pick the background music at the beginning of each shift and when she comes back in from a break, allowing you to customize it whichever way you want and play your favorite tracks. But what it also allows you to do is to dictate the mood of the bar. You can play the more upbeat and fast-paced tracks to create a lighter and energetic mood, or put on the slower, more melancholic tracks to create the opposite kind of atmosphere. It's not only a brilliant soundtrack, but the way you can customize it is brilliant as well. Having played through Valhalla twice now, first in 2017 and now again in 2021, I can say for certain that it's a good-ass game. The feelings that the game invokes in me are no different despite having experienced it before, and I am still a massive fan of its aesthetics, not only in the visual department but simply on account of just how hard the soundtrack slaps. Most importantly, however, despite all of its wacky, crude, and referential moments, what Valhalla does is tell a compelling story that leaves you with a clear message. A message as poignant as ever in the near dystopic world that many people find themselves living in today. A message about not living in the past. We're human, we make mistakes, all of us, and the important thing is to not ask yourself, what if I'd done this, or what if I'd done that, and play the moment over and over in your head until it eats you alive. The most important thing to do is to do what you can. Look to the future, don't hold on to your past mistakes, but be sure to learn from them to make sure that you don't make the same mistakes in the future. And a reminder that we're all unique and we all matter in our own way, even when at times it doesn't feel like it. And even though we're all just on some great big rock floating around in a gigantic void of unmeasurable proportions, each and every one of us is alive, and we should cherish that. And with your limited time on this bitch of an earth, one of the things that I highly recommend that you do is to buy Valhalla Cyberpunk Bartender Action, mix some drinks, and change some lives. Because for a visual novel that's actually good,
I'd buy that for $1.